Our fourth and final springtime stop in Texas is Palo Duro Canyon State Park. Palo Duro Canyon is the second largest canyon in the United States, and it is absolutely beautiful. Georgia O'Keeffe described Palo Duro as a burning, seething cauldron filled with dramatic light and color. Palo Duro is all this and more. Follow along as we explore its many features. Located in the south-central Texas Panhandle, the region is bordered on the west by New Mexico and Oklahoma to the north and east. One of 10 panhandles in the U.S. Here, the southern plains meet the desert. The canyon was formed through water erosion of the Prairie Dog Town Fork Red River. All of the geologic formations exposed are comprised of sedimentary rock. Sedimentary rocks are typically stratified and appear as layers or beds called strata, which is the case within Palo Duro. Our travel to Palo Duro requires traveling about 350 miles, which is a long day of driving. Unlike when we flew into cities and then raced to our destination, we now slow down and enjoy the drive and take in the many roadside sights. On this day, we spy many interesting and quirky sights.
Reach for the sky.
Not lighting, but it's got plenty of birds on it. Did you see the birds? It's fun.
Check out it with the train that's going through.
Wow, this is Truck Central.
Yeah.
There's a little train station.
Oh wow, look at that train station. What is this? Hereford.
This is the beef capital of the world. There's a reason why Hereford, Texas is known as the beef capital of the world. Hereford feeds more than 1 million head of cattle annually within its nearby feed yards. That equates to over 1 billion pounds of beef produced and over $1 billion in cattle sales every year. Pretty impressive for a small town. Hereford helps to produce enough beef every year to feed 65 million people, which is based upon the worldwide average consumption. Hereford isn't just about beef cattle, though. Dairies in the area produce over 1 billion pounds of milk on an annual basis. That equates to 125 million gallons of milk, 100 million pounds of cheese, 47 million pounds of butter, and, to top it off, 125 million gallons of ice cream. There are, of course, a handful of complaints about the smell. The conditions which resulted in the infamous Dust Bowl in Texas and Oklahoma panhandles in the 1930s has not been fully abated to this day. As we get closer to the Palo Duro, the strong winds we are driving into are heavily laden with dirt dragged off of nearby farmers' fields. Little did we know, this is still a very normal experience in this section of the country. The Spanish name, Palo Duro, means hard stick, referring to the Rocky Mountain junipers in the canyon. The second largest canyon in the United States, it is roughly 120 miles long with an average width of approximately 6 miles. It is typically around 800 feet deep, although in some locations this drops to about 1,000. It is a slow, winding 10% grade during the 8-mile ride to the bottom. A roadway that harkens back to the 1930s and the back-breaking work completed by several CCC outfits. Many of their buildings and services are still in use today. Entering into the canyon, you see the beautiful colors of the 4 geologic layers as you descend to the floor of the canyon. The canyon began forming about 1 million years ago, but the walls of the canyon tell a much older geologic story. The steep sides of the Palo Duro Canyon consist of bright, banded layers of orange, red, brown, yellow, gray, maroon, and white rocks that represent the 4 different geologic periods and a time span of more than 240 million years. Besides the geologic history, the canyon has been home to many of the region's early inhabitants, the last being the Comanches and the Kiowas, a whose knowledge of how to enter into and exit out of the canyon without being seen allowed them to remain one of the last free remaining native tribes in the U.S. However, constant scouting of the canyon by the U.S. military allowed their discovery, and thus leading to their final succumbing to the superior numbers and firepower of the U.S. cavalry. A second state park exists within the canyon. That is Caprock State Park. Located at the far end of the canyon, here one can still see the last of the plains bison. The bison are the remnants of the great southern plains bison, of which there were once more than 8 million. After the Civil War, newly constructed railroads made shipment of tanned bison hides profitable. The bison were slaughtered en masse, and the southern herd was all but wiped out from 1871 to 1878. The Caprock Canyon herd comes from the last 32. Of those, they have multiplied and now number about 100. They are considered the official Texas state bison herd. It has been a long day, a long drive, and we are all tired. When we settle in, look around, and find that we have an absolutely beautiful campsite, and we are all very happy with what we see. The low angle of light clearing the canyon walls prioritizes reds and orange light from the visible light spectrum, and this sets up the perfect conditions for some spectacular sunsets. It is now time for us to begin exploring this foreign land that we find ourselves in, and we opt for a nice easy hike along the rim of the canyon so that we can spy the canyon from the top down. The wind is actually kicking our butt, and we have to hold on to everything or risk it being blown away. The trail we start on, and the one we intended to stay on, is called the CCC Trail. It is an easy trail, runs a little bit about 1.5 miles, stays right along the edge of the canyon, is fairly flat, and gives nice views down into the canyon. However, at some point we managed to get off this trail, get onto another trail which is twisting up and back into the canyon. By the time we recognize this, it's probably too late, and we have to turn around and come back and call it a day. Another popular trail is the Cowboy Dugout Trail. It's a short hike from the northern end of the Paseo del Rio Trail, and it is highlighted by a stacked stone dugout cabin complete with a crude wood and earthen roof. It was built and used by the J.A. Ranch Cowboys in the early 1880s. The famed J.A. Ranch is still operating today and began as a partnership between Charles Goodnight and John Adair. The ranch had its beginnings here, with Goodnight herding cattle within the canyon. The cabin below shows the conditions of the cowboys operating here in the late 1880s. So are we buying it or?
No.
No.
fireplace is nice.
What is this? Protect elk meat. Elk. Right, I'm gonna go up through here. To show how underground it really is. Look at that. Completely underground. Got the fireplace chimney here, barely sticking out. Wow.
My favorite tool to discover and select hiking trails is the All Trails application. With it, I can both discover and review current trail conditions. They have recently added a very useful feature where you can preview the trail in a three-dimensional perspective. This offers a means to assess the vertical ascents and descents prior to taking the trail. This can also be seen in the trail description. Selecting the map shows a length and elevation map of the entire trail. For the Lighthouse Trail, it's mostly flat with a final 200-foot ascent to reach the base of the lighthouse. Notable canyon formations include hoodoos and caves. However, the most dramatic and recognizable feature, and therefore the park's logo, is the lighthouse. This is a 300-foot freestanding column of layered rock. To fully appreciate the structure, it's necessary to observe it up close. The main trail leading to the structure is a multi-use 6-mile round-trip out and back trail. Besides hiking, the trail supports bicycles and horses, although both riders need to disembark and walk before reaching the end of the trail.
Go ahead, you're good. All right. Appreciate it. No charge. You lose a cap? What? Oh, you find them? Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a couple guys. Is it a cannon?
No.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see anything.
Have a good trip.
As the sign at the beginning of the trail suggests, this lighthouse trail needs to be taken seriously. If one takes it in summer, there is no shade whatsoever, and one should probably carry at least a gallon of water with them. On this day, however, we are blessed with cool spring weather, and we have just absolutely the perfect conditions to take the trail. Still, we each carry about a half a gallon of water with us to ensure a good, successful, happy hike. Typical of our hikes, I'm usually cutting trail out in front and then stop to take pictures, and lo and behold, next thing I know, I'm at the very end of the trail and need to catch up. Such as this day as well. Not everyone wants to talk to you while on the trail. However, we found that serious hikers generally at least acknowledge you and say hello as we pass. Lucas has picked up on this, and he too is a friendly hiker.
Look at that smile. That's a real smile.
The final section of the trail involves a vertical 200-foot ascent that is largely a rock climb. Here I'm sitting at the top and suggest to Patty, this might be a little bit difficult for you. That is like telling a bee you are not equipped to fly. She just doesn't listen, and lo and behold, before we know it, she's at the top.
part is really loose.
Well, I went down that path, but it's.
I didn't realize you would have that big.
I just said.
Didn't you went down that way and what?
It doesn't look like it's converging.
Would you turn that off? Because it's
And it's got the stone in the background. You want us to get your picture? You want us to get your picture?
That's right.
Yeah, here's what you understand. Go to the top. Do it.
Okay. I mean, you guys are real experienced at it. I can tell already. You know. Like right here.
Look at the spot.
You can sit on the bench. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
And you
So
can say
I just
see-
go back
No,
this way.
Kind of that way. No, this way goes.
yeah, that's even worse.
Okay. So I will not find.
Yeah, parking lot. Pretty. Parking lot. Under a van. Eating a bag of Cheetos.
Our return hike gets an added bonus of excitement as a couple of military helicopters fly overhead. The hike is over, the day is ending, and it concludes with another lovely sunset. Our time at Palo Duro Canyon is drawing to an end. Because of this, we set out to explore nearby points of interest. The first place we traveled to is Alabate's Flint Quarries National Monument. This is a site with unique stone which was discovered by and then mined by early inhabitants in the region. The extracted stone's composition allowed for construction of tools which could be sharpened to a very fine edge. The second site we visit is Lake Meredith National Recreation Area. This is a small man-made lake, and we take a short hike around it, as well as Lucas attempts to harvest the power of the tumbleweed. As our time draws to an end, we take one last drive around the park, catching sight of some turkeys, shut down for the day, and just plain enjoy the last beautiful sunset.
The Valero sign is going boom, 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 boom. And Gramps, he didn't have any hair to float around.
In the hours before departing Palo Duro, the wind has kicked up into the 50s and 60s range, and this is pounding everybody and everything, including us. Before we leave, the winds deposit a massive amount of dirt both upon the truck and upon the RV, which requires a bit of cleaning before we can take off.
Set out on the open road, same old place you always used to go when you were younger. Speeding through a 50 song like your dad before you didn't even notice. The old man with silver hair sitting in his rocking chair. Soon you'll be there. Although it's easy to remember, it's as easy to forget that it leaves you feeling down and filled with some regrets. All this trick of the memory, we call them good old days. Although sweet in the moment, it's poison for